All right, so y'all just want to go through real quick, keep it kind of short, sweet to the point, unless it's like really worth debating. Y'all want to do a little contender versus pretender?
I'm with it.
Yeah, we can do that.
I'm
That's
with it.
smart.
All right. Obviously, we've already talked about a couple of the teams. We talked about the Bulls just now. At the end, we've had a little bit of Heat talk, a little bit of Nets talk, but starting in the East, I guess we'll just give a one-word answer because we already talked about the Heat. Contender or pretender?
I would still say contender.
Yeah,
I would
I'd
still
say contender as well.
It's shaky though, but I'm gonna say contender.
Yeah, I would say contender, lower tier contender, but contender. Next one is pretty interesting. Philly.
Contender for me.
I'm gonna say pretender. I don't think they're built right now for playoff basketball. I don't. They don't have the shooting. Their defense is a little shaky, and like Harden and Embiid shoot a lot of free throws. In the playoffs, that's not gonna be the case, man. You got to go and get buckets. I'm gonna say for this season, they're a pretender.
I think I would agree with pretender. I feel like it's very hard to rely on free throws and then contributions from outside players. Obviously, you have Maxey, but beyond him, there's not really a lot of super consistent production. So I don't think this is their year. Milwaukee.
Easily contender.
Definitely a contender.
Easily.
They're my favorite out of the East.
I would say so too.
Defending champion. Still pretty much have every piece. They got them there. Yeah, contender. There's not really much of a conversation to have. I think the next one might be just as obvious. The Boston Celtics.
They got to be
Easily.
contenders.
No, all bias aside, because if they were playing bad, I would definitely let y'all know. Other than the Bucks, that's the team in the East. Other than the Bucks, that is the team.
Completely agree.
Defense wins championships, and the Celtics have the best defense in the league, and in 2022, by far the best defense. So,
real
peaking
quick,
at the right time.
They've been beating the shit out of people. Like good
Exactly.
teams, they've been beating everybody by like 20 plus. I'm like, bro, it's kind of crazy, bro. It's looking scary.
Yeah, they're holding NBA teams to under 100 in 2022. Like,
Crazy.
that's not a big thing, especially with this recent scoring surge. Just like everybody's scoring on everybody big except Boston.
Yeah.
This is another probably one-word answer. Chicago.
Pretender.
Pretender.
But it's fine. I don't think anybody expected them before the season to be a contender. But just the way the season has flipped on them, it's a little disappointing.
Unless Lonzo starts playing like LeVar against Michael Jordan, it's not their year.
Yeah, I had them at the 7th seed to start the year, so they're doing fine. It's as you mentioned, their expectations since they started playing well at the start of the year just shut up.
I'm gonna hold this to a future conversation, but I think they probably need a coaching change. I think they're towards the top of that list. I'll save that.
I was gonna say in the last segment, if they miss the playoffs, does Billy Donovan get fired?
I think Donovan
he has to be.
If you lose one or two players and your team completely falls apart, bro, like your schemes clearly are not the reason you were winning. It's the talent on the court.
That's
either
tough.
that or your schemes are very fragile.
That's tough. Hopefully they make the playoffs then, because I like Billy Donovan as a coach.
All right, and then just out of fairness, but I feel like these are a little more like not expected to be contenders. Cleveland.
Yeah, pretender. Not their year,
but
give them a few years.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, Raptors.
Yeah, same thing. Give them a couple of years. Let Scotty develop. If they actually get a bench, there's potential there, but they're a couple of years away still.
Yeah, to me, both of these last two are upset watch in the first round, but it's very difficult to see them making a deep run. And the only reason I went this deep is because we need an answer for Brooklyn.
I still say pretender. Like I said earlier, I don't think this is their year, but they can still make real noise. That's because they have two super elite guys. They can make some real noise.
Yeah, I probably have them as a contender for that reason. They are quite low on my contender list, but I still think with Kyrie and KD, they have a chance to make that type of push and get to the finals. I do have questions about the rest of the roster, but I think that those two alone as a duo give me enough confidence in saying they're a contender.
I would say, yeah, they're at the very bottom of my contender tier. They obviously always have a chance with ISO heavy down the stretch basketball, but very unlikely, I think, that they'd have to be really like three great teams. If they stayed at the 8 seed, they have to beat Miami, Boston, and the Bucks or Philly, whichever one, to get to the finals. And that's a tall task. So with that, here's probably the most obvious one of the whole video. Phoenix Suns, contender or pretender?
The team. They are the team to beat.
100%. 100%. They're the favorite right now, and there's good reason for it. They're playing their best basketball of the year right now as well.
We're gonna have to talk Devin Booker MVP after this segment. We got to speak on. I want to hear y'all's thoughts.
Okay. All right. I think this next one is probably a bit of an interesting one. The Memphis Grizzlies.
They're pretenders for me this year. I think in a year or two, contenders for sure. I don't believe them enough this year though. This is a good team, but I don't trust them enough come playoff time. I think Ja is going to be still obviously very impactful in the playoffs, but if he can't hit his three down consistently, I think that's going to hurt come playoff time as well. And after that, they don't have another elite creation or shot-making option. Dillon Brooks can do it. Desmond Bane can do it. I think they'll get there. I think Desmond Bane eventually will probably be that number 2 guy. But as of right now for this season, especially considering from the get-go, they're going to have a tough matchup either against Denver or Minnesota. I have them as a pretender.
It's crazy because I can see this team making the conference finals, and I can also see them going 7 in the first round against Minnesota. For the fact that I can see them reaching the conference finals, I'm going to say they're a contender. Because if you can make it that far, you have a chance. And if you have a guy like Ja, you have a chance. So they're just over the contender. They're on the contender side, but just barely. They're there.
To me, they're a pretty sizable contender. I think if I were having to pick a favorite in the Western Conference, I think the top 3 are the top 3. And I think if you're a top 3 threat to win your conference, to me, you are a contender because it's like they have the superstar, and yes, I'm calling Ja superstar. I don't even think that's that much of a hot take now, given the media attention and his performance and everything surrounding that. And then with how good his team is without him even playing, it shows they have a good supporting cast, good coaching, good, just great team all around. It's not just the Ja show with a bunch of nobodies. It's Ja and a bunch of also really great players. Probably the most depth of any team in the league. They're very scary. And I don't know the last time where injuries didn't play a major factor in who won the title. And with that being said, the team with the most depth is always going to be a great threat. So to me, they have to be a contender.
They really just got guys everywhere that produce, bro. Like DeAnthony Melton had a 23-point game the other night. You mentioned Dillon Brooks. Zion Williams was supposed to be a project player, but he's played very impactful minutes. Desmond Bane really took a big leap this season. Jaren Jackson's a decoy candidate. And they're 16-2 without Ja, I think. They've won a lot of games without Ja Morant.
I know it's something into because they've just continued to win while he's been out recently.
Look, man, sometimes you do from the rotation in the postseason, but I think this is a team that's going to thrive with their strength in numbers. So, man, they're going to be a tough team, man. Taylor Jenkins, Monty Williams is coach of the year, but if it wasn't for Monty Williams, he would easily be coach of the year in my book.
Yeah, and with Ja resting right now, he might be a little fresh coming into the playoffs.
Yeah, and they basically got the 2 seed. They got the 2 seed locked up, basically. So they'll be fine.
Okay, next one is kind of a little, maybe a little divisive, but we'll see what you guys say. Golden State.
Is it the Warriors? Warriors.
Yeah.
They're still a contender. as long as Steph comes back healthy, they're still a contender.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely have me a little bit worried with how they've played over the last month or so. Even since Draymond has been back, it still hasn't been all great. But as you mentioned, right, Steph has been missing some time. Of course, Draymond has missed a significant amount of time. They haven't had a ton of time where they've all three of them, Steph, Clay, and Curry, been healthy. Clay had one of his, if not his best game of the season since returning the other night. So shout out to him. He's been looking a little bit better and a little bit more comfortable. He just needs to continue to keep things simple, just continue to fill in his role. When he tries to do a little bit too much and act like he's better than he is, which even as he is still a very darn good player, that's when things can start to go a little bit wary for him. But I think as a full three-man healthy, Curry's back, Draymond's healthy, Clay's doing his thing, I think this is still a contender in the West.
To me, I would have them on my contender list, probably right above Brooklyn, but right below Miami. So, like, pretty low-level contender, but they could definitely get it done. I think the main reason for me is that health thing. It's like the fact that all three of them have barely been together this season. Are we just going to expect that they're magically all three able to be together in the playoffs? I don't know. And if all three of them can't stay on the court together, I don't really know how much they're doing. But if they have all three of them, they have Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins plays like first half the season Andrew Wiggins and not second half the season Andrew Wiggins. They could still pull something off, but I don't think it's too likely. Moving on, I think the next one, the Utah Jazz are pretenders. If you guys have any objections there, you can let me know. But the Utah Jazz are pretenders.
It's crazy because one of my boys that I know through TikTok, he was saying, like, he made a video on them the other day, and he was saying, like, I still got confidence in them. I'm like, nah, bro, nah. My confidence is so dead in this team. After when they went into Boston the other night and just completely just didn't show up, I have no faith in the team. And they lost last night to the Hornets. Like, they might be a first-round exit away from blowing this core up or making some type of big trade in the offseason. Because, man, this team is not going to get any better than what they were last year.
Yeah. Half the reason I want them to do this, Dallas. Give me the Dallas take.
Contenders, fully. They are, if not my second, then at worst my third favorite out of the Western Conference right now. Since the trade deadline, since Spencer Dinwiddie's been added, they've looked like one of the best teams in basketball. Luka Doncic has been playing very well. Spencer Dinwiddie has been playing arguably the best basketball of his career. Not quite the production that he was putting up in Brooklyn, but his efficiency has been absurd. Jalen Brunson continues to do his thing. Dwight Powell and his pick and roll game with Luka has looked much more comfortable. With him getting more consistent minutes, staying healthy, and Kristaps out of the team. I think this team is just more successful without Kristaps Porzingis. Not to say that you don't need talent around Luka, but I think they just need a talent around Luka that don't need plays run from them, don't need their isolation touches as much as Kristaps does, because Brunson and Dinwiddie can still do that for them. But from a coaching standpoint, from a game plan standpoint, you don't need to think, okay, I need to get 10, 15 touches where Kristaps is doing something. You don't have to do that as much with Brunson or Dinwiddie. They can get their production a little bit more naturally through the flow of the offense. They can run the offense when Luka's not on the court, which makes it a lot easier for Luka to actually get some amount of time off the court. Not that he still doesn't play significant minutes. But I think this team is just much better built to succeed around Luka, and I think their defense has been much improved as well. I'm still not sold on them being a favorite by any stretch. I still do consider pretty much everyone out west to be weaker than a lot of the teams in the East outside of the Suns. But I like them more than the Grizzlies. I certainly like them more than the Jazz. And depending on the day you ask me, I'd put them ahead of the Warriors as well.
That was well said. My guy, Pierre from Through the Wire, he said this about the Celtics, like less is more for that team. Same thing for the Dallas Mavericks. Less is more for them because Luka is just that damn good. And like you said, like Dinwiddie's not like what he was in Brooklyn, but his efficiency has been off the charts. He's been really good. Jalen Brunson's been playing great all year. And they just got guys that just make big plays. Dorian Finney-Smith, he deserved every penny that he got in that contract extension. He's a big-time player. Jason Kidd's done a hell of a job coaching this team, man. He was getting a lot of, flack early on in the season. Guys need to, give him his flowers because he's done a very good job with this team. And I feel like they might not be top 2 contenders in the West for me. Like you said, you're very, very high on them, Devin. But I could see them being like the third team that can make a lot of noise because Luka is just that good. Like Luka, I don't think we've seen him play with talent that fits with him so well. You know, other than like this team right here, I feel like this team fits with Luka so well. And I'm excited to see what they do in the postseason, man. Nobody wants to play this team in the first round at all.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. Excuse if you can hear the sirens in the background. City things.
Oh, good.
But yeah, to me, I just don't think this is their year. I think they built something really well. It's been working out pretty dang well for them, but I just don't really see a world where they get out of the second round. I think this will finally be the year where Luka wins his first playoff series. I definitely think that they can overcome the Jazz. But you got the Suns in the second round, and even if you didn't, you'd have like the Grizzlies in the second round. I can't picture the Mavericks beating either of them in 7, just given the Grizzlies' overall consistency. Like the Mavericks have been nice, but this is a team that just lost by 20 to the Timberwolves. They lost to the Hornets by 20. There's just a lot of nights where they come out and they just aren't on it. Lost by double digits to the Sixers as well. It's like they've had a lot of really good performances, but they also have a fair amount of bad performances. And just that overall inconsistency really doesn't sell me too well on them. But given the way that they play when they play well, I do think come next year, they really could be in that conversation.
Well, Devin said this is the year. This is the year that they can make a big push.
No guarantee Jalen Brunson is back next year, so that's the one concern moving forward. Not to say that they wouldn't still be fine without him, but he's a big part of this team, and I don't think they'd probably replace him. And that definitely could be part of the thought process with bringing in Dinwiddie. They're still a good team without Brunson, no doubt, but that's definitely a piece that they lose. Now they're kind of in that scenario again where they probably don't have as much creation as playmaking as they would like, because you'd have Luka and you'd have Dinwiddie, but then that would be about it. So
yeah, keeping Brunson's got to be their top. That's got to be their top priority. I think he's probably been their second best player all season. I feel like that's not too much of a stretch to say.
I can agree with that. Luka was giving his praises to him on JJ Redick's podcast as well. He very much echoed similar thoughts. So,
and so yeah, they got to bring him back. It's just given those top 3 teams, I can't see the Mavericks putting together a super deep run. But as a team I think they can probably push the Suns to like 6 if everything falls right. But I don't even think they'll force a game 7 in round 2. And given that, they'd probably have to be on my pretenders list, but at like the closest pretender to a contender.
Yeah, that Suns matchup is just
the
way they've been playing. Chris Paul just coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't see any. I hate to say it, man. I feel like people are kind of overthinking it. Like I feel like this team is head and shoulders better than everybody. And they've been showing it all season long, bro.
Yeah,
like,
they just are.
God forbid an injury to anybody. I don't see anybody beating this team in a 7-game series. They're too good.
9 games ahead of the second best team in the league, and that's with Chris Paul missing significant time.
Who's next on the list? Is this Minnesota or
should be
no?
Denver.
Next is Denver, and I think this one is interesting because I think it's twofold. I think you have to say the hypothetical where the big 3 is back and the hypothetical where they're not.
I think even if they come back, pretenders, even if they come back, that's asking so much for Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. Like, hey, we need y'all to be 20, 25 points in the postseason. That's a lot to ask for them, man. But you got Jokic. You have a chance to make a first-round series very interesting. Maybe win it. You never know. Jokic is that good. But even if they get past the first round, I think that's where the party ends for them.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. Even if Jamal Murray and MPJ are back, it's not going to be to anywhere near what we know of Jamal Murray and MPJ. Like, at best, they got even if they were back tomorrow, which they're not going to be, they got 3 weeks to figure it out for the start of the playoffs. it's not enough time for the severity and the significance of the injuries they had to rehab, to get in shape, to get in game shape for playoff basketball, never mind for the start of a regular season. So like you said, they might get a first-round win out of it. Even then, depending on their matchup, that might be tough. This is a contender moving forward once Jamal Murray and MPJ are healthy again, hopefully. But I don't think this year's their year.
I would have to agree. I think no matter what happens, once again, they won't have enough time to mesh and just time to really get everything right where it needs to be to make a push. So a pretender, just because they have such a great play that I could see him stealing a couple games, but I can't see Jokic in this supporting cast stealing 7 against the top 3 team in the conference.
Agreed.
Now we get to, I feel like really it's only about 7 deep. I think we can mention Minnesota. I'll give them their respect because they've done a lot of really good things. I think below them, there's not really any team that even comes into the conversation of contender.
Not at all.
So I'll get your takes on the Timberwolves, and that'll be the last one.
Yeah, I think the Timberwolves are still pretenders. I've really liked what I've seen from them this year, though. I think as of late, over the last month to 2 months, they've been playing the best basketball we've seen from any Minnesota team in pretty much our lifetimes. At least it's our time we've been watching the NBA. They've been really good. D'Angelo Russell's been good. Anthony Edwards has been very good. I'd still like to see more consistency from him, but that'll come with time. Cat's been playing some of the best basketball of his career. Pat Bev's been doing his thing. Vando's been doing his thing. Their depth has been playing very well. Shout out to Taurean Prince, who's been playing some of the best basketball of his career since his time in Atlanta. But they're not quite at the talent level of some of these teams yet. I think they have the upside to get there, depending on how much Anthony Edwards is going to continue to develop. I think he's the potential ceiling raiser for this group moving forward. This is far from the best of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think the best is still to come from them, but they're a pretender for the time being.
Yeah, to me, it's based off of those matchups. Sorry, I'll let you go first.
Oh, I was basically just gonna say, like, yeah, that's well said by Devin. It's just what they've done this season is very impressive, especially like the start of the season. They were just like really 500 basically for the first 40 or so games, and I was kind of worried like they might fall out of that, playoff race. But I mean, they've been leading the pack, man. They've been at the 7th seed for basically the last month and a half, maybe 2 months. And it's just a shame that they might still have to play a playing game because they've been one of the best teams in the West for like the last month or so. But still a very impressive season from them, but they're still on the pretender side, but the future is very bright.
Yeah, I'm wishing for them to pass up Denver. Just I don't want to have their spot in jeopardy. I feel like I can really trust Jokic to pull out a game in the play-in situation. While I do think Cat is great, it's like we've just seen the Timberwolves fold too many times. And so I don't even want to have a chance of that. But, yeah, I think what stifles them is just that Grizzlies matchup in the first round is so scary. It's like if they matched up with the Warriors in the first round, I would give them significantly more of a chance. But even then, it's like, yeah, not yet. Still a little bit too young. Still a little bit of ways to go. Maybe a couple pieces to really round out the edges of this team. But they're close to having something really good.